talking all about money and how much I spend in a week as a 26-year-old without a job living in Toronto. If you guys are new here, that was probably a little bit confusing as to why I don't have a job. I made a video when I made that decision, which I will link on the screen, and it basically gives you more context of how I came to that decision. But in summary, it's been a couple months now since I left my previous job, and I've been doing a lot of things that fill my cup, pursuing my passions, and just enjoying this time that I have, taking a break from what I've always known, working in corporate. So that's what my reality has been, and I've documented a lot of it with my recent vlogs and sharing what my life has looked like. That said, life still costs money. I've definitely still had to support myself, so I wanted to break down how much this has cost me. I'm going to be walking you guys through every day and how much I spent in the past week. Before we dive into that, a bit of context as to how I'm affording life right now. First, I just want to say up front that my decision to leave my job was very personal, and I think every person, if you decide to make a sudden change like that, is going to take a lot of evaluating of where your circumstances are at before you can do that, and finances is a really big portion of that. And I was fortunate enough to be in a place where I was able to save money from my previous job. So that definitely played a big role in me feeling comfortable enough to live without a job right now. Things like rent, food, bills, things that are fixed costs and essentials, I wanted to make sure that I would be able to continue to pay for. That said, I have been able to put a lot more time into YouTube, which is one of my passions. And with that, I'm really grateful that I've been able to make some money from it. The two main ways are through YouTube AdSense, which are the ads that are on videos if you're a YouTube partner. The second part is through brand deals, and those sources of income have definitely helped, but they are not steady or reliable. With that in mind, it's really money that I've just been using to cover off like discretionary things. So as we go through the amounts, I just wanted to make that clear. It is really just those sources of money and budget that I have. And I wanted to mention that I did a video very similar to this last year where I showed what I spent in a week, but obviously circumstances were different. I had a job, and obviously that comes with a completely different mindset. So I'm excited to show you guys all of it. This is not my recommendations or advice of any sort. This is literally just me being transparent. The last thing I'll just say is I really didn't want to completely change my life while I don't have a job. That might not be everyone's opinion of how someone should live or how someone should spend their money, but everyone's situation is different. Everyone has different priorities. For me, what I wanted to prioritize was still enjoying my life while being mindful of my spending. So this is not advice or suggestions or in any way saying that I'm doing it right. I'm just doing it my way, and money and finances in general are very personal, so what's working for me might not work for you. Okay, those are all of my disclaimers. In terms of rules for how I've calculated this, I'm only counting transactions that happened within that week. So anything that was already at home that we purchased before, I'm not gonna count, but any time that money has come out of my pocket, figuratively speaking, within the last week, that's what I would count. And because I know fixed costs and things like housing and stuff like that are a big portion of our expenses, I'm gonna do that at the very end so you can see what that looks like on a weekly basis as well. A couple considerations. One, I live in Toronto. All of these amounts are Canadian dollars. Toronto is considered the most, if not the second most expensive city to live in Canada. If you know, you know, but that's just one thing to consider. And I live with my boyfriend, so we do split things like housing, groceries, stuff like that. So you'll see that through the video as well. My little notes on my laptop. We'll start with Monday. In terms of my morning routine, it's very similar most weekdays or every day because my life is actually in a pretty good routine right now. So I often have breakfast at home. I've been on my pesto eggs kick. So good. If you haven't tried it, you need to get on that. I also have cold brew almost every morning that I make at home. So I've shown it a few times now, but it's literally just getting a French press and steeping it overnight in cold water. That turns it into cold brew, and it saves me from going out to buy coffee every day. That said, I feel like because I spend so much time by myself at home, I still enjoy going to a coffee shop and getting out of the apartment. So the only other thing that I did that day was actually go to a coffee shop and get some work done. I needed to fill up my Presto card, which is the transit card in Toronto, and I added $15 to that. So that top up plus what I had already on my card lasted me for the rest of the week. When I got to the coffee shop, I went to Starbucks and I already had money on my Starbucks card that I could use. use, so technically that was already paid for, and that was the main event of the day. And then for dinner that night, my boyfriend had made us some food with the groceries we had already. Healthy, simple. That's a lot of our cooking style, to be honest. And we do our groceries on Sunday, so for most of this week you'll see that we used food we already had, and then I'll show you what the groceries look like when we go grocery shopping. So total for Monday came to $15, and that is how much that actually came out of my bank account. Tuesday was a super dreary day, and typically I do not like to go anywhere or do anything. It's also very dreary today. So I had my typical breakfast, morning routine. I did go to the gym. Having some movement is very key on gloomy days, I find. So I actually go to the gym within our apartment. Since we moved in, I've always just done that. I haven't had a gym membership for a few years now, and I just feel like for the type of workouts that I need to do, it doesn't make sense for me to go somewhere else. And then I actually had dinner with someone that I used to work with, which is super random, and I usually do not go out on Tuesdays. And I told her that I was gonna get her dinner because I hadn't seen her in so long, but she ended up covering the bill, which was super generous of her and not what I expected. So that was really, really sweet of her, and I really appreciated that. I ended up not spending any money, so that was a pretty one-off situation. Moving on to Wednesday, same thing for my morning routine, very repetitive at this point. How many eggs and toast combinations can I make? I don't know. And then we were running out of a few things at home, so I actually went to the dollar store. I am a dollar store advocate. I feel like for household items, dish soap or baby wipes, like common household goods, you can definitely find for cheaper at the dollar store, because downtown Toronto prices are kind of crazy in certain stores. So I've always tried to go and find things if I can at the dollar store. Even when I had a job, this is what I would try to do. I know it doesn't seem like a big difference, but think of like every single time you buy something that's twice the amount at another store, that does add up. In total at the dollar store, I paid $10.45. I also wanted to make something different for dinner that night, and we do try to stick to the groceries we have, but I just wanted to get a couple items for the recipe that I had in mind. That mini grocery trip came to $14.47. The recipe I made was actually super cute. It was a stuffed bell pepper with like turkey and rice, and it was so good. I feel like I always want to find new recipes that are easy. For Wednesday, the total that I spent was $24.92. Then we get to Thursday. Just a warning, Thursday is the biggest spend day, which I did expect and anticipate. So I had my hair appointment that day. I first stopped in at the coffee shop because I was a little bit early, so I just had a nice little drink, enjoyed myself, and read a bit before I headed to the hair salon, and I ended up getting my hair freshened up. This goes back to what I was saying about everyone's priorities situation being different, and I actually had a photo shoot the week after, so I really wanted my hair to be ready for that. If I didn't have my photo shoot coming up, I probably would have waited a little bit longer, but for me, the photos were important, so it was something that I did anticipate. And then at the end, it was kind of late and I just wanted to get home quickly, so I ended up taking an Uber. The coffee shop was $5.65. My hair appointment, including tip, was $131.34. Because I took an Uber home, that was $16.73. When I got home, we had dinner at home. There's always food at home. For Thursday, my total was $153.72. So that was definitely the biggest spend day, but for me, that was an investment and something that I had planned for. This is what the hair looks like, by the way. I had my shoot. I thought the photos looked great, and I loved that my hair was looking good for it. Then we get to Friday and Saturday, and I actually had nothing happening, which was so nice. Just staying at home on the couch or staying at home and getting editing done. Because it was so cold, the most that I did outside was just take my dog out for a walk. Otherwise, it was very chill, and I enjoyed some leftovers. My boyfriend was out of town for a couple days, so I got to enjoy some couch time. So I spent $0 for Friday and Saturday. Love that for me. That's definitely changed though. I feel like when I had a job, the weekend was the easiest to spend money that I didn't plan for, but I know that's not something that I want to do, so I just avoid those situations, and I think being more intentional through the rest of the week helps me as well. And then we get to Sunday. Sunday is our grocery shopping day. It's also typically my little reset day, so I spend time tidying, cleaning, laundry, things around the apartment, and then my boyfriend and I will typically go grocery shopping together so that we can both get things that we need. We do split our grocery bill in half. This week's groceries, it was $151.83 for the week. So that was about $76 per person, with the exception of little things that I might pick up like for a recipe or something. We do really try to stick to that and buy things that we can freeze or things that might be on sale, or going to cheaper grocery stores, because if you live in downtown Toronto, there are some really expensive ones and we try to avoid those. We honestly did this anyways when I had a job. The only other thing I did on Sunday was my nails. I actually do my nails and lashes at home. Forgot to mention that. In terms of beauty costs, obviously everyone has a different routine or whatever, but I like certain things. I like to have my lashes, I like to have my nails, but I do them myself. I've done these things by myself since 2020, so this isn't a change, but just something to consider. I think they look good, you know, getting into the holiday spirit. So the total for Sunday came to $76 for me. With all of that said, for the week, in terms of variable costs, which are costs that vary and change, and basically I would consider this discretionary spending except for food, the total for the week was $269.64. I honestly don't feel any type of way about that, with the exception of doing my hair, which is not a weekly thing, obviously. Everything else, oh my god. Everything else that I spent money on were things that I felt brought me value and things that I prioritize in my life. And then I went back to look at how much I spent in my previous what I spent in a week, and the variable costs from that were about $489. So I would consider that a pretty significant difference in terms of my discretionary spending. Now we get into the fixed costs. Fixed costs meaning they don't change month over month. I feel like my camera is struggling with focusing. I'm so sorry. But yeah, they don't change month over month. And to be honest, they really haven't changed since I had a job. For me, fixed costs include rent, bills like phone, utilities, and then subscriptions. For rent, I live with my boyfriend, like I said, and we live in a 1-bed, 1-den apartment. The rent in Toronto honestly is a little cray-cray. For us, it's $2,300 for a month. I would say for downtown Toronto, which is where we live, that is pretty fair. I'm not saying it is affordable compared to other housing markets, because there's definitely cities that are more affordable than that, but for the space that we get, I have seen apartments that are way more. I've seen apartments that are less, but this is where we live. For each of us, that comes to $1,150. We've always split our rent in half. We did have a slight rent increase since the last time I did one of these, but it is overall still pretty similar. Based off of that, the weekly cost would be $287.50. For utilities and hydro, my boyfriend takes that bill, and we just worked it out that way when we moved in, so it's always been like that. And then I take the internet bill, which I've always covered. That is $128 a month. I know I actually said in my last what I spend video that I was considering to reduce that and get a different plan. I don't know why I haven't. That is my bad. I probably should have looked into that, but we still have the same internet plan. That works out to about $32 a week. For my phone bill, that comes in at $89.60 a month. The weekly for that would be $22.40. For subscriptions, a few of these have changed over the last few months just because I feel like I've had other things that I wanted to use for like content and stuff like that. I have Disney Plus, Netflix. We actually use the ad tier of Netflix, which is always kind of funny to explain, but it's not that bad. You only get like maybe 2 or 3 ads whenever you're watching it. I know people are like, why would you pay for ads? I just feel like it was my way of justifying it. So I do have the ad tier of Netflix. And then Spotify, vidIQ, which is what I use for keyword research and SEO stuff on YouTube, and then Adobe, which I use for thumbnails. Those are all my subscriptions. The total of that per month is $61.25, so that works out to $15.31. In total for my fixed costs on a weekly basis, that comes to $357.21. Very similar to the fixed costs that I had when I did have a job, and the actual comparison was previously it was $344.98. So it is pretty similar, and that's when I think about like what I said at the very beginning around how I've budgeted, because I knew that these were still going to be costs that I would incur on a monthly basis. With that said, I'm sure you want to know the absolute grand total. For my variable and fixed costs, the total for this week came to $626.85. And compared to the previous video I did, that was $834.65. So we have about a $200 difference here. Again, everyone's circumstances are different and everyone has different lifestyles, priorities, financial situations, so just keep that in mind. I hope this was interesting for you guys. I always love to watch these types of videos and it's purely for entertainment purposes, but also if you are considering a potentially similar path, then I hope some of the considerations that I've mentioned might help you as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and to check out other videos from me on the screen, and I'll see you guys next time.